Greetings, citizens. I'm Venkuskrata, and today we're going to talk about tanks. Currently, we have two tanks that we can drive. We have the Tumbril Nova main battle tank, and we have the Tumbril Cyclone, which actually comes in two variants. We have here the light tank variant, and then there's also the anti-aircraft variant. But today we're just going to talk about the light tank because it's the one with the guns. Starting out with the Tumbril Nova, this is the currently available main battle tank to civilians. We can access the interior of the Nova by this ramp at the back, which we can open just like that. And as we enter, we see that there's actually quite a bit of space in here. We have lots of room to walk around, and we're greeted by our component area in the rear, followed by a weapon rack, so your crew can be outfitted with small arms in case the tank breaks down. We have our main gunner seat right here, and then we have our driver's seat to the left and our support seat to the right. I'm gonna get started by entering our driver's seat here. And immediately you can see that the view from inside is not the greatest. We're gonna power on our engaged systems here.
System check.
And we're greeted by a suite of MFDs. You can see our size 0 shield charging up. Like most vehicles, we have our power triangle that's changeable. And we're going to take this for a bit of a spin. So as you can see, when we take off, it kind of rocks back a little bit. It's fairly loud in here as we drive around, but like all tracked vehicles, it tends to slide a little bit when you want to turn. It acts a little bit like a hover vehicle in that regard. But all things considering, for the big vehicle that it is, it's actually fairly fast in a straight line. Where you start to lose some speed is going up hills and trying to maneuver. So you just want to be careful of that when you're in the middle of a fight. What we're going to do now is we're going to enter the remote turret. So the driver also has the capability of manning the main weapon of our tank, which is a size 5 Slayer ballistic cannon. And as you can see, the turret rotates pretty slowly. So at times it's easier to rotate the entire body of the tank to get your gun on target. As we're driving around, again, you can see the movement of the turret is quite a bit slower, and so tracking targets while you're on the move is probably going to be a little bit difficult. We can use the Z key to zoom in, get a better sight on our target. And what I'd strongly recommend is not actually locking on when you need to take out a target, because as you'll see, the lock-in system here doesn't always do the aiming justice. So we're going to lock on here, and at close ranges it's fine, but as soon as you start shooting at further ranges, it gets a little challenging. And as you can see anyways, the gun really doesn't keep up to your aiming spot anyways. The other issue is tanks have pretty low signatures, and so as soon as you get at any kind of a distance, as you can see it's kind of glitched out as it is, but at any sort of a distance you're not going to see their radar spike anyways, so you really want to rely on your eyes and your zoom to get that shot lined up. So we're going to fire a cannon here. As you can see, our shots have a bit of arc, and obviously that's going to be impacted by the gravity of whatever location you're on. But what I like to do is I like to use the crosshairs here as kind of an unofficial range guide. So if you're at about 2.5 kilometers kind of distance, you want to use the bottom of that lower crosshair. And if you're on a planet with heavy gravity, you probably want to use the top of that for most distances over, a few hundred meters. planets with lower gravity, you can be a little bit more generous and be a little bit more true to the center of your crosshair there. The last thing you want to consider about the Nova is that there are a few vulnerabilities. So the main turret can be damaged quite easily sometimes. And so you want to make sure that your main turret is staying out of the line of fire, which is kind of difficult when you also need to use that to shoot, but that's currently where we're at with that. Also means that if you're fighting another Nova, that's where you want to aim, is for that top turret. You can disable their gun, essentially taking them out of the fight. Also need to know that the tracks can be damaged and shot off, reducing your capability to drive around effectively. And at the back here, this rear door, this rear entry can also be shot open, and it only takes a few rounds, a couple mags from a smaller ballistic weapon to open that. So if infantry get in close, they can board you fairly easily. So just some important notes to be aware of with the tank here. So now we're going to move on to the, the little brother of the Nova. This is the Tumbril Storm. This is a newer addition to Armored Warfare. And the Tumbral Storm here is a light tank. So as you can see, it's got a smaller gun on the top. This is actually a laser repeater, classified as a size 3. So it does significantly less damage than the main gun of the Nova, but it has some rapid fire, and the additional agility and speed of this light tank here allows you to kind of dart around on the battlefield, take some shots, and keep active while trying to stay out of the main gun of the Novas. So like the Novas, this one can take a few hits, but not as many as the Nova, as it is a light tank. So it's about 3 shots from a Nova main gun that will destroy it. So as you can see on the side here, we have our component housing on the side of our, well, this is actually a weapons rack. So we have a weapons rack. I believe this is for a rifle, a larger weapon, not a rocket launcher or something. And then we actually have our entry point right here in the front. See, the seat comes down, and we're gonna get in this way. There's also another weapons rack in here that you can throw a smaller SMG or something into for personal defense. And here we are. Sometimes it takes the door a little minute to close. So I have a few switches available here. We can deploy the turret, so when the turret's powered off, it kind of lowers down. We can open up the doors and whatnot too. So we're gonna power on. So as you can see, compared to the Nova, the visibility in here is even significantly less. So when you're just driving around, I definitely recommend using your remote third-person view. So we're going to enter the remote turret here and see what it looks like. You get a nice view from on top of the weapon. As you can see, turret depression compared to the Nova is significantly better at minus 25 degrees. And we got about plus 40 degrees on the way up. So if something gets right on top of you, you're gonna have a hard time hitting it, but you're maneuverable enough that you should be able to move quick enough to get whatever was directly over top of you, not over top of you, and you can shoot it. So as you can see, it's a little bit more agile, it's a little bit more maneuverable. It does slide around on these tracks a little bit here, but drives quite nicely. It's pretty quick in a straight line too. So we're going to fire our Rain 3 laser repeater. It's got that double barrel action. As you can kind of see, it sounds and acts pretty similar to any normal size 3 that you're gonna find in the verse. So the difference is, because this is a tank weapon and bespoke to the Storm here, it actually does significantly higher damage than your standard size 3. So that is important to recognize, that this is going to do some more damage. However, it is still going to take some time to whittle through that high armor of another tank or even a ship. But after doing some testing, it also has a much further range than your average size 3. So as you can see, it does have a little bit of drop, but you can hit things 2,500 meters away, which for most laser weapons is not currently attainable on a ship. So that's an important thing to note as well. So one of the downsides of the Storm here is that it does not have countermeasures of any kind, unlike the Nova. The Nova does have some noise and some chaff that it can fire off as being locked on for missiles. However, on the flip side, the signatures are so low on these vehicles that most ships aren't going to be able to get to a distance where they can both see your radar spike and lock a missile onto you. So typically that shouldn't be much of an issue. Nice thing about the Nova with that little turret on the top is you can shoot it down. So as we wrap up, just a couple of tactics for the Storm. Unlike the Nova, where you really want to use your manual aiming, Storm here works because of its automatic fire. It's a little bit more forgiving if you do that lock-on aiming. However, again, at those distances, it's not going to be super successful when you can't lock on. So you just need to practice that a little bit. We're going to get out of here. And yeah, like I was saying before, with the tanks, you just want to make sure that you have nice, consistent, smooth motion when you're firing. And that makes sure that your gun stays on target, especially with the Nova, where it takes a while to reload that main gun. You really want to make sure that when you're firing, your platform is stable and gonna hit what you aim at, because you only get 40 shots and each one counts. And thank you for joining me today. I've been Venkuskarada. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the basics of tanks. We're gonna wrap it up here and looking forward to seeing you out in the verse. Have a good one.